In this video, I will show you how consuming porn destroys your mental health and your brain power that you have to use to achieve your goals and achieve your success. So when you lose your brain power and you destroy your mental health, you are literally destroying your capability to achieve the success you want in life. Bro, do you really want to destroy your capability to achieve success in life? Do you not want your future self to be successful? If you really want yourself to be successful, if you want to achieve your goals, then keep watching this video. Because you have to understand how this addiction works so that you can shield yourself from this addiction and quit this addiction, so that you can destroy this addiction instead of this addiction destroying your life. But first you have to understand how this addiction works so that you can understand how it starts ruining your life. And this starts with dopamine overload. What do I mean by this? What I mean is that when you watch too much porn, when every time you watch porn, your brain gets a hit of dopamine, as in it releases a lot of dopamine. Just like any drug addiction, cocaine addiction, or any other addiction, your brain gets hits by a huge amount of dopamine. So what happens is when you watch similar type of content, you don't get that high anymore. You don't feel that high, and this is a problem. But what happens next? You start escalating in terms of taste or the hardcoreness of the video that you watch. You start going for even more hardcore videos because you don't find the same level of pleasure in watching the similar type of content anymore, because it's not that pleasurable anymore for you. It's not that fun anymore for you because you don't feel the same level of high that you felt when you first started watching this type of content. So you start watching even more harder and harder type of content, and you keep going for more and more hardcore type of content. And this is really bad for your brain as well as for your psyche, because your dopamine level keeps dropping entire time, not just when you are spawn, but once they get numb, they start numb or desensitized for as long as you are stay addicted to this addiction, because it keeps going numb and keeps going desensitized. But once you quit or take a break from this addiction, they slowly repair themselves, slowly allows for more dopamine to be received because your brain is healing. So this leads to escalation in taste of porn. So you start watching even more hardcore porn, and since your dopamine level decreases so low, you don't find pleasure in real life activity, you don't find pleasure in doing the real life work that you are supposed to do to achieve the goal that you are supposed to achieve, or you hope for yourself, or you have the goals for yourself to achieve. But if you don't do the daily task or the daily action, you're not going to achieve those goals. And what porn does is desensitizes your brain to dopamine so much that you don't feel motivation to do any of this anymore. Why? Because motivation is dependent on dopamine. The amount of dopamine you have in your system is the amount of motivation you feel. Because dopamine is literally the chemical of motivation. So if you have low amount of dopamine, what do you think happens? Obviously, you get low motivation. And motivation is also like fleeting. We all know that motivation doesn't last long. It comes and goes away. So think about what I talked about dopamine all this time. Dopamine releases in your brain and it also floods away. It doesn't stay there. So what that means is that your motivation is as much as dopamine you have, or as much as dopamine you release in your system. So if you don't receive enough dopamine in your neurotransmitter or your neurons, dopamine is a neurotransmitter and neuron receives neurotransmitter to understand brain signal. But if you don't receive enough dopamine, what do you think happens? You are not going to be enough motivated enough to achieve the goal that you want to achieve, because you are not motivated enough, because you don't have enough dopamine in your system. Like, that makes sense, right? That's a very simple science, very simple explanation of how it works. So what did we learn from this? We have established that dopamine desensitization leads to escalation in taste of porn. Like, you started watching even more hardcore porn, which leads to even more desensitization because you are releasing even more dopamine like before. And the more dopamine you release, the worse it is for you, because you are getting more and more desensitized as the time goes on. And what that means is that your dopamine isn't being received properly whole throughout the day in your system. And the amount of dopamine you have in your system, you receive in your system, is the amount of motivation you have. So if you're not going to have enough motivation, how are you going to achieve your goal? You're not going to work. And we all like this saying that do the hard work even if you don't feel like it. But trust me, you and I both know that you have tried it. But if you don't have enough dopamine in your system, you still can't push through the work. And why would you compromise on your motivation on your own? This is what destroying your motivation. Then why would you not quit this addiction? Why wouldn't you get rid of this problem for your life? Because when you know clearly that this is the reason you are having all this problem, bro, tell me literally, why wouldn't you quit this addiction now, right now? And why wouldn't you reclaim your mental health? Literally, your brain health, not just your mental health, the physiological health as well, not just psychological health, but physiological health as well. Literally, it is literally ruining both of it. Because think about from the psychological perspective. You are, instead of doing going out there and spending time with your real life partner, or finding or working hard to achieve success so that you can attract a beautiful real life partner, you are in your room or your washroom beating your own weight to watching other people do the deed instead of you doing it yourself. Just think how damaging it is going to be for your psyche. Don't you realize that it's bad for you, bro? Think about that for a second. Do you really realize that it is really really bad for you, for your psychology, to consume this type of content? If you develop mental health problem, psychological problem, because of watching this content, and your motivation is very down, how do you think you are going to do the task that is required for you to do every single day, that you have to do to achieve the goal that you want to achieve? How are you going to work toward your success if you cannot achieve the goal that you want to achieve? How are you going to achieve the goal you want to achieve if you don't even put in the bare minimum work that you need to put on, so that you can stack up your daily win? Because think about all the long term goals that you want to achieve in 6 months, 12 months, 1 or 2 years from now, 2 3 years from now. All of those things are dependent on your daily consistent action every single day. Daily win is what is going to lead to the long term win. Because nothing happens magically in life. Unless you win a lottery, you don't automatically become successful overnight. That's not going to happen. For us, in real life, in reality, we have to put in the daily work. We have to grind every single day, do our daily due diligence, put in the work every single day so that we can achieve the goal that we want to achieve. And if you don't put in your daily work, if you don't put the necessary amount of diligent work every single day, how are you going to achieve the goal that you want to achieve? How? Do you understand what I'm saying, right? It's pretty simple. If your motivation is low, you are not going to want to start the work, no matter how much discipline or willpower you think you have, which by the way is very important too. But dopamine and motivation is also important, and dopamine helps you with your discipline and willpower as well. But think about it, if you don't have enough dopamine in your system anyway, like discipline, if you start your work, even if you don't feel like it, you are going to intrinsically feel motivated and inspired to do the work, right? That's what would happen to a normal person. That's how a normal person would, they, if they start working even if they don't feel like it, they would still get the motivation to work after doing the work for a while. That's normally how it starts. You start working and then you get the motivation. But if you have low amount of dopamine in your system anyway, how are you going to work? How are you going to produce meaningful work if you cannot even motivate yourself even after you started working? If you feel bored because you don't have enough dopamine in your system, how are you going to achieve the success you want to achieve? Don't get me wrong, being bored intentionally without any addiction is good for you. But if you are bored because of a side effect of addiction, that is really bad for you. Because it's not that you are intentionally bored or you are in a bored moment. Obviously, if you are doing something productive for yourself, that's an exciting thing to do. But if you don't have enough dopamine in your system, how are you going to feel excited about the work? So this is why you have to quit this addiction today. And if you want to quit this addiction, you have to know the real reason behind it, the real reason behind how this addiction works, and why this addiction is so dangerous, and how it keeps you in its claws, stuck. Because if you don't understand these things, you are not going to quit this addiction. But how do you quit this addiction? If you want to learn that, you have to click here to watch this video next, because you have to understand the real reason behind this addiction, as I've said. So you have to watch this video to learn, where I discuss how you can truly quit this addiction. So click here to watch it now. Click, 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 click.